house. I am so excited for today's episode. Welcome, 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 dear Jasmine. Oh my God, this will be amazing. We have a bit of a history about how we have gotten onto this. But before we share any further, a warm welcome, and I'm so excited to have you here. And I would love for you to maybe start with introducing you and your wonderful work a little bit so that the listeners can kind of get a feeling.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad we were finally able to connect. We were just sharing before how the universe kept pushing this back and back and back. I said to Anna, the tool that I'm going to be talking about this evening, Soul Plan Numerology, it has a very clever way of knowing when the person is ready to hear about it. So I was like, I've got no doubt you're going to hear this information in perfect divine aligned timing. So yes, my name is Jasmine. My business is called Leo Rising, and I'm a coach, a mystic, a medicine woman. Never really know how to encapsulate what I do, but my big main kind of purpose this lifetime is to really help women to understand their unique soul purpose and their gifts and their unique journey this lifetime. And I use a range of different tools, including the Soul Plan Numerology, which we're going to be going into detail in today. I work with the Akashic Records as well, and I work with kind of soulful, intuitive, feminine business strategies to really help other healers, light workers, mystics, medicine women in business to really connect to their unique purpose and their unique gifts, because we're all here for a very different reason. We've all, even though some of us might have common missions, there's a unique energy to each and every one of our missions, I believe. And then that's what I really support women to connect to and to activate within them. So yeah, that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Oh, thank you. It's always so hard, to kind of condense that into a few words. I know, I'm so sorry, but kind of we need to kind of find a way to not present ourselves, but to give people a feeling. And then on the other hand, it's always like, how could I just condense that in a few minutes? But totally agree. The alignment back to the purpose or the remembrance of what we are about to do here in this lifetime is so needed. And I think especially in these times where we're kind of slowly getting the hang of that, it couldn't be just hustle culture and working our way to exhaustion in being in a mask or taking on a mask that is not ours. I think it's more important than ever. So it's such a beautiful work you do. And I'm excited to learn more about the Soul Plan Numerology, because we've talked about that briefly before when we met. It's very different to the classical numerology that we might already know, or know a bit of Chinese numerology, but it's a really different thing. So I'm super excited to explore it. How did it find you?
Yeah, it was really interesting how you were just mentioning then about the masks that maybe we wear, because that's kind of exactly part of the journey that I had in terms of Soul Plan Numerology finding me. And it definitely did. I didn't find it. It definitely found me. But yeah, I was working as a children and family social worker. I went to university straight from college, did my social work training, started working as a social worker at age 21. So kind of got into it really early, really quickly. And I was like, yeah, this is my sole purpose. This is what I'm going to do. I never really questioned that there would be anything beyond that. And I did it for 7 years. And 7 years in, I started to experience signs of what I now know to be deep misalignment and burnout, really. And I didn't know what was happening at the time, but I was becoming really anxious, really low mood. The burnout got so bad that it got to the point where my whole body was in pain and I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning. So I was really pushed to stop and to reevaluate and to reassess the path that I was on. And I went into a little bit of an existential crisis. I was in my mid-20s. I've been doing this for 7 years. I was like, if I'm not going to be a social worker and climb the career ladder in social work, what am I going to do? How am I going to earn money? And I went into a huge panic, and I was taking some time off from work, signed off with stress and anxiety. And that's when my kind of spiritual remembering, as I call it, kind of happened, because for the first time in my entire adult life, I stopped. and I slowed down and I reconnected back to myself and my soul. And I started incorporating tools to help with my anxiety, mainly meditation. Somebody recommended some crystals to me. I went for my first ever energy healing, and it was like this whole new world opened itself up to me. And at that point, I knew that I wanted to do something around healing, spirituality, holistic healing, but I had no idea what it was going to look like. And I felt quite overwhelmed because I was interested in all of the things. I started getting interested in the Reiki, the crystal healing, the working with the moon cycle. And I was like, where do I even begin in terms of making this a career? So I was confused for quite a few months. And I remember I was back at work after sick leave, and I'd had a really rough, horrible day, and I was in that energy of like, how can I get out of this? What can I do? And I remember I was sat in the park on my lunch break, like crying, and I was just scrolling Instagram, and this advert popped up on my feed, this sponsored advert, and it was asking questions like, do you feel like you're at a crossroads in your life? Are you questioning your next steps? Are you questioning your soul purpose? I was like, yes, yes, yes. Open it up. And it was this sales page for a Soul Plan Numerology practitioner training. I'd never heard of it before. And the other really crazy thing, I think one of the other reasons I was so upset is because I'd been booked onto a Reiki practitioner training that was coming up in a couple of weekends' time. And I was so looking forward to that because I was like, okay, this is going to be like a next step. And I'd had an email to say that it was unexpectedly cancelled and they didn't know when it was going to be available again, right? So I clicked on this Soul Plan website, and the dates of the Soul Plan Numerology training were the exact dates that the Reiki training was meant to be. And I was like, okay, universe, I think this is my sign. So I literally booked on, not really knowing anything about it. It was that one of my first like huge intuitive pulls, I think, and I trusted it, and that was really the start of my journey in terms of continuing to trust that gut instinct and that intuition. So yeah, I did the training in, I think it was November 2018, and it just showed me so much about myself and really helped me to get a bit more clear on what it could look like to have a spiritual business, where my strengths really lie, what I could be focusing on, so that I didn't feel so overwhelmed and scattered and wanting to do all of the things. So it took a bit of time. I think it wasn't until the following April, after we went into lockdown, of course, as many people did, that I then took the step to launch my business. And I'd left my social work job in the February, just before lockdown. So it all unfolded quite quickly after Soul Plan Numerology fell on my path. Yeah.
Wow, which seemed to kind of like in hindsight, or when you tell me about it, it seems like so natural that it just did, and the alignment of the timing is like really amazing. So I got chills when you talked about like how actually the universe's humor, I think, is always quite funny. The way it's making you really, really, really uncomfortable, so that you really get out of whatever you need to like evolve out of, and then it pushes you quite frankly into a direction that is good for you, but so often we still don't see it, so it needs to like have a layer and a layer. And wow, to launch a business during that time, I imagine that it was like a bit of an emotional wave with all the, like, I for myself know like the doubts that come up to say like, okay, how the world's going to change, and is this like something that people still have money for? So yeah, on the other hand, it's like lockdown. If you do it in the online space, then it might also be like a very easy way to do something when you couldn't do something in the physical.
Exactly. Yeah, it was quite the perfect time, because I think during that time I initially launched my business just focusing on offering the Soul Plan Numerology sessions, and there was quite a lot of interest quite quickly, because I think a lot of people were in that energy of reassessing, because they were at home, they were experiencing a different pace of life, and a lot of people were like, yeah, then on the path and on the journey of starting to question, what else could I be doing, if I'm not doing the 9 to 5. So I think I was quite lucky in that sense that I did start off the sessions at that time, and I was lucky that I gained quite a lot of interest quite quickly. So yeah, I'm so grateful for the way that it all unfolded.
And also, like what you said really resonated with me personally, and also like for the women I work with or that are in my world as friends, like it actually doesn't matter. It's just like we kind of, when we have this spiritual remembering, as you call it so wonderfully, then things come up and we are kind of like diving into crystals, into tarot, into energy healing, into meditation. And if you do start thinking about making a business out of it because you feel like so much more aligned and so on purpose with it, then there's this like, okay, but about what? I cannot like do 20 things at a time. So I love that the Soul Plan Numerology kind of helped you figure out the path for the next steps, because that's often like the overwhelmment of this beautiful like variety of tools is actually, I did underestimate it when I started, because I thought like, okay, I do this, and then I thought like all the other things, and it's like really where to start there, because there's so much. And so I think it's always really beautiful when you have a tool that can kind of like guide you, not limit, but like just guide you to the next steps, and then from there things can unfold naturally.
Definitely, yeah. And it's similar to other tools that may be a bit more well known. For some reason, the Soul Plan Numerology is still quite unknown. A lot of people haven't heard of it. In fact, I've done hundreds of readings, and everyone that's come to me for a reading hasn't heard of it before. So I'm definitely on a mission to spread the word. But it's kind of similar, I suppose, similar but different to other tools like astrology, human design. You know, I think those tools are gaining much more popularity, and a lot more people are aware of them and are using them to get that clarity. What tools helped you to get clarity back in those early days? I'd love to know kind of how you connected to your unique purpose and gifts. Yeah.
Same to you. Like, I really remembered my gifts when I was in like struggling, challenging time, when my son was born shortly before COVID hit, and I was in a 9 to 5, and me and my husband, we didn't know each other very long before my son was born. Okay. So it was like just the overwhelm, and I had some like really bad physical chronic things going on, and so I was like really down. And then I found, same as you, like intuitively like said yes to doing a mindset coaching year with Bob Proctor, which I have never done before. And at first I thought like, oh, the wealth thing, like that's not of interest to me. But then I found like what really drawn me to him is like the deep belief in the potential of every soul. And that was where I thought like, oh my God, there's someone who I don't know yet who believes in me much more than I do. So, okay, that's something. So I booked into that. I didn't have the money, but I paid like 7,000 euros that I didn't have to like do a year of coaching with him, and actually ended up to be one of the best things ever, because I discovered I can fully trust myself, even with like intuitive decisions that do not make any sense to the outside. And I learned so much about how to shift paradigms, how to access my own trust, my own belief in myself, which I like really deeply needed at that moment. And from there on, I kind of like gone into what you described before you found Soul Plan Numerology. This like, oh, there's this and there's this and there's this. And then slowly, like I embraced what I've already remembered at that time, like the me seeing the energies and the auras, which I have been doing in childhood, and then I kind of suppressed it. So all of that came back, and I was really overwhelmed with what to do with it. And I didn't trust myself fully enough to go in with the mindset coaching and say like, okay, well, I've done this. I'm able to teach that to others. So it took me quite a few years to like kind of work that out. And what I then found was that this mindset coaching is like, it has huge benefits and it's beautiful, but I've missed the female part of it.
Right.
It's like I've missed the flowy part, the body part, so the embodiment of this like conscious knowledge. And yeah, we work a lot with the subconscious, but it's kind of like stays in the upper part of the system. And so I did a lot of like energy work. Then suddenly my light language was activated, and then everything kind of makes sense. And I'm still feeling like I'm puzzling together pieces. So it's definitely not complete, but it makes more and more sense over the years when to work with crystals, when to do the light language, when to use this. So kind of I'm a Virgo sun and moon, so things want to be structurized. And, you know, channeling cannot. So, that took me some time.
I can see your desire for structure. It's so funny. We'll go into that in a minute. But I love it when people talk like, I can see that. I can see how that plays out.
Well, that's a beautiful confirmation, isn't it? Yeah, so that's kind of like how it took quite a long time until I was able to say like, okay, well, that's a thing that I feel really confident offering because I've experienced it myself and because I'm really familiar with the topic.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this is kind of like how it puzzled everything together, but it started with the mindset coaching and this like really logical approach to inner change from like the inside out and not from the outside in, which like really spoke to me a lot.
I love that. I love that you really trusted that intuitive.
Yeah.
Pull.
My husband was mad. He didn't understand. But I was like, I felt like it was so clear. There was like no way around this investment. The same like you said, okay, you didn't know what it is, but then you sign up for the Soul Plan Numerology. Sometimes it's like just the body, it's a full body, yes, how I know now. Through human design, it's like this, like my body kind of leans forward and says, yeah, with everything it's had, but it's not a logical decision.
100%. Yeah. What human design profile are you?
I'm a generator, sacred generator with a 1-3, which kind of makes sense with all the like learning and accumulation of knowledge that I love to do. Yeah, so that's something that helped me really a lot to discover how I work and also like to ditch judgment around the way I do things. Because it kind of like explains the energy flow that was like really nice to see for me.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know too much about human design, but I'm a generator as well. I'm a 5-1 generator. And yeah, when I learned about the way that we make decisions specifically, I was like, okay, yeah, that was so similar.
That's so much sense. Is there any like, do you see like coherence or overlap in Soul Plan Numerology and human design? Do you see like some similarities in there? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. They're very different systems, and I don't obviously always know the human design of my clients, but when I have seen both third parts or both energies, I can definitely see parallels. And for myself as well, because a big theme within my Soul Plan Numerology is around trust and gut instinct, and of course that's a big theme around for generators as well. And sometimes there's parallels between astrology as well. They're all very different systems, but you can definitely get a little bit of overlap, and you get a flavor and a sense of the unique energies. So I can see that straight away from you mentioning that you're Virgo, right? I can see straight away how that energy shows up in your chart. So yeah, shall we dive in a little bit to energies?
So, before we dive in, just one question for my logical mind is, I know it's working not with the birth date, but with the name. Is there any like, do you have kind of like in human design, is there a visual coming out of it, or is it like, is it kind of like a thing that you look at visually?
There is, yeah. Let me go into that a little bit. So it is based on the birth name. I just want to check that I've got your name right before I go on.
Yes.
It's the birth name. Yeah, it's always the birth name. So it's based on the idea that our soul, as well as choosing date of birth, time of birth, place of birth, all of the things, our soul chooses our name as well. And the reason our soul chooses our name is because the physical sound vibrations that our name makes and carries impacts the energies that we attract and draw in. And we've chosen the energies that we wish to attract to fulfill our soul's mission, our soul's purpose. So we've chosen what we want to excel in, what our gifts are, what our strengths are, but we've also chosen what our challenges are as well, so that we can learn and grow and evolve, and so that we can gain the wisdom that we need to share with others, to support others on their journey, but also to gain the wisdom to support our soul on our soul's specific journey. So yeah, we use the letters of the birth name to calculate the numbers. It's quite a complex numerological way of doing it. I don't get involved in. I just use a computer system, to be honest, because maths is not my not my strong point. So we have a lovely computer system that converts it. And then what we end up with is a chart which looks usually like the simple Star of David figure. I don't know if you're able to see it, but I've just drawn a rough version of yours. So it's usually just this star. And for people that have very short names, 7 letters or less, it's just one triangle. So that means they have less energies that they're working with. But for most people, it's the two triangles. And what the 2 triangles represent, the downwards one represents our worldly aspects of our journey. So the more human, 3D, mundane, day-to-day type of stuff. So the stuff we might be more occupied with earlier on in life. So for example, it's, getting your education, deciding what career you're going to do, setting up your first home, those more physical aspects of the journey. And then the upwards triangle represents the spiritual aspects of our journey, which is that point in which we start to maybe question things, like you and I both did, when we had that spiritual remembering. We start to search for deeper meaning. We start to reconnect back to our gifts and our spirituality and our soul. So that's what we look at in the upwards triangle. And it's different for everyone. Everyone's timeline and journey is different in terms of when we kind of come out of the worldly and into the spiritual. Some people in one specific lifetime might never really connect to that upwards triangle. They might be so embedded within the worldly, but those people wouldn't be coming for a Soul Plan Numerology session, right? Because it just wouldn't be on their agenda. So usually when people come to me for a session, they're kind of either well within the upwards triangle, or they're just starting to come out of the downwards and into the upwards and really starting to be within that part of the journey. So there's 7 different aspects to the chart, which includes your worldly challenges, talents and gifts and goals, and then the same for the spiritual, your spiritual challenges, talents and gifts and goals. And then in the middle we have your overall soul destiny, which basically pulls it all together and speaks to the version of you that's been on a journey of mastering your talents, moving through your fears and your challenges, working towards your goals, and you're kind of living in alignment with the exact blueprint that your soul chose, which can be a lifelong journey, but definitely hearing about it in your chart really just activates and propels you into quicker and more deeper alignment. So yeah, that's how the chart kind of
often
forms.
it's like the awareness that like does so many things, and I think at the moment we allow that the awareness can change a lot before we even start doing something is a really powerful moment where we like really, I feel, accelerate and also go into the trust, because it's not only about the doing. Yes, it's important, but like knowing, hearing, and like I feel like the energy you hold with speaking about the soul plan numerology in a way that people can just be who they are, it's very powerful. It feels very safe, and then you kind of like can like really take in what comes there, and it can like work itself through your whole system, so that there's the alignment almost just from hearing it starting in.
Yeah, definitely. I always say to people, it's a reading, but it's an energy activation as well, because even just receiving the information, your soul remembers things, right? And it activates that energy within you. And I love the way that you described it as well, because yeah, that's literally what I always say to clients. I say this, I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know about yourself on a soul level. It's more of a reminder and like a big rubber stamp from the universe, like this is who you are, and give you full permission slip to own it, to own the light and the dark, to own what you struggle with, because you've chosen what you struggle with, and it kind of helps to release judgment and shame, I find, as well, especially when we look at the challenges, because seeing that you've chosen those challenges, it can really help you have more compassion for yourself, and it can really fuel you to move through those challenges, because all challenges within Soul Plan Numerology have the potential to be transmuted into your greatest gifts, which was definitely a big part of my journey. When I learned that one of my talents within my chart was that of expression, when I learned this 7 years ago, I was definitely in the shadow of that energy, and I wasn't embracing it as a talent or a gift. I was like, are you sure? Like, that's not, because I was very, I was more, because of the anxiety and things, I became quite inwards. I became quite shy, and I didn't want to use my voice. But then hearing that it was actually one of my strengths, it gave me that like kick up the bum to clear my throat chakra, to really bring me into my confidence, and to continue to build upon that as a strength. So it's really powerful. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And it's interesting, because to me, a similar thing happened when I learned about the Shui numerology, the Chinese version of it, where like I'm a 2. A 2 is like the one who's like easily communicating and who manifests everything through their communication. I was like, no, I'm a total introvert. I was shy my whole life. I was convinced that I'm not able to speak to people or approach people or say the right things when they're necessary or know what to say. So I was feeling like so not up for being someone who is like speaking. And then it kind of like worked through my system, and a few months later I thought like, why not? And then I the podcast, and it was like, oh, okay, actually you're really good at this. But I wasn't aware before, so it's super interesting that it happened to you too. And I think it's really profound when we get this permission slip of saying, like, regardless if you have ever experienced this talent of yours in your life, it's there. And the moment you own that, because you kind of see it as a visual, it's almost like you're seeing proof of what you can do that you haven't known before. And you think, oh, okay, well, and then you kind of take it on. I think it's really funny.
So powerful. I love how similar our experiences have been as well. It's always the way, isn't it? Like, people get drawn together.
Cool.
So, shall I give you a few little snapshots that I can see within your chart? So, yeah, it helps to give a bit of tangible for people listening as well. It can help to understand a bit tangibly how
they
this
kind of know like
so,
what a session would look like and how you move through that, what to expect.
Exactly. So I'm actually going to start with the energy that I can see playing out from what you've spoken about. Don't usually start with this, but I feel really called to. So your overall soul destiny in the middle is the energy of 11-2, and this is all about structure. It's structure, assimilation and harmony, and wisdom and support. The 11-2 is that real blend of the masculine and the feminine energy. So it's a huge part of your soul purpose this lifetime to find that balance. Big part of you desires and needs the structure, like you mentioned. It's like the 11 is the masculine and the 2 is the feminine. So it's part of your journey, part of your purpose to find that balance. And it's really important for you to have both. It's really important for you to create those solid structures with the 11, to have that divine masculine container and structure, because you need that. But it's also very important that you allow your feminine energy and your expression to flow. And that is really what you're gifted in. That's really what you're here to do, to find that beautiful blend of the divine masculine and the divine feminine energies. So as soon as you started speaking about being a Virgo, I was like, okay, yeah, 11-2, I can see. Yeah, and you have a nice blend actually throughout your chart of the more feminine and the masculine energies. So specifically feminine energies that I can see you've got showing up within your worldly challenge. So your worldly challenge is the energy of 5-5, which is the energy of spirit and freedom, which is one of the most spiritual, high vibrational energies. You've also got the 10-1, which is manifestation and unity as one of your goals. The 10-1 and the 5-5 are the two most spiritual, high vibrational. They're very feminine, they're very connected to source, they're very connected to your intuition. So you've got these energies within you, but they're showing up in a challenge and a goal position. So they're not something that you've maybe easily been able to trust. Okay, so learn to trust them and learning to find more grounded, logical, as you said, structured ways of understanding that spiritual energy and being able to express it and communicate it is a big part of your journey. And I know some of the things that you've already spoken about today kind of lean into that. So really important for you to be pulling all of the spirituality down into your body, working on grounding and working on finding nice contained, as contained as they can be, ways of really expressing that spiritual energy. Because if you don't have a little bit of structure, you can tend to feel a bit overwhelmed or scattered, or like too much spiritual energy is coming in and not really knowing what to do with it, how to channel it. How does that feel so far?
That feels really I feel so seen in this. It's really, really amazing. And actually, I love the numbers. I'm not like very drawn to math, but I love like number sequences. So the ones that you mentioned really feel very aligned. And it's interesting because like this masculine and feminine balance is definitely a big thing that I'm trying to really balance out, because I've been in the masculine definitely the most time of my life. Like at least the first 30 years I've tried to like really do things in a more masculine way, because the trust in the feminine flow was like, oh no, I don't know how to handle that, or I don't know if I can trust that. So I'm always very intuitive, but then again I try to like make it reasonable with the masculine structure. So that makes definitely a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's a big theme for you throughout your chart for sure. Your worldly goal is the energy of 22, which again is a very feminine energy. This is movement, flow, and seeking, and wisdom and support. So this is all about your ability to be in that feminine flow, to surrender, to kind of allow yourself to be carried by the stream of life, to really kind of go with the flow, surrender and release control, and trust again is a big piece of this one. So there's big incentives for you to move through any kind of limitations that you place on yourself and to really come into this feminine flow. You've got a lot of feminine energy, you've got a lot of creativity in your chart as well. So you have, as both of your talents, both the spiritual and the worldly, you've got the energy of 15-6, which is soul inspiration with the 15, and 4 the creativity with the 6. So this is the energy of basically using your creative energy, your creative power to to inspire others. So this is a really powerful energy, and to have this as double, to have this as both of your talents, it's like this is a really strong energy. And if you're not allowing yourself to create based on the energy and the frequency of your soul, you know, to create on a soul level, if you're not allowing yourself to do that and to, you know, be birthing new visions and projects, your energy is going to become very, very blocked within the sacral, and then that's what's going to cause overwhelm, burnout, you know, or a disconnect to your purpose. So really important for you to be really working with the feminine energy and the womb, and allowing yourself to consistently birth new visions, and, you know, to trust in your ability and your power to do that. How does that feel?
That is actually so nice because it kind of confirms the path that I was taking on directly after school. I went to fashion, and I did a few years in fashion, having my own brand, then moving to jewelry, designing my own jewelry and making it. I always want to make it. I just want to not just want to design it. And then I went to like furniture and like how to design the interior, but it always had this creative, really big creative part, and I've never felt burnout, even though I had like 15-hour days or something. So there was like, I think the creativity like really kept me, the passion really kept me very healthy in this like intense work period. And only when I moved to a job that is really very logical, down to earth, totally non-creative, out of needing to have some change in my life, that was when like the burnout part hit. So it's really interesting that this creativity coming in double, and where I've landed now, it's really nice to see, is it's a creative way for me to channel. So there's creativity not so much in the crafting sense, but it is like in the way I channel light language, or even in the way I do my coaching sessions. They're very creative, they're very like intuitive. So there is a ground structure, but then the rest is like really flowy. And also I started again, so thank you. I started again doing like female art, female necklaces, and like wall art that is connected to the moon cycle and things like this. And I've thought like, okay, well, what should you do with 20 pieces of wall art? You cannot hang them everywhere. And I didn't intend to sell them, but it's really nice that you bring them up, because it's like, this is like my soul wanting to express itself in a way without the logical, like, what do you do with it after you finished part of it. So it kind of seems like keep myself alive.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that. That's definitely a combination of those things, definitely a way that you're really activating all of the energies and all of the talents and gifts that you have. I love that. You're definitely found your alignment from what I can see. And then the only other energy that I haven't mentioned is your spiritual challenge, which is the energy of 9-9, which is the energy of peacemaking, power, and protection. This is the most powerful fiery energy out of all of them. This is linked to astrology sign Leo. So it's about your leadership. It's about your confidence. So it's about your ability to stand in the spotlight, right? So you have this potential, because remember, all challenges have the potential to be into strengths, but maybe at times you might be a little bit shy, like you mentioned, or you might not want to take center stage. You might not want to be that fiery Leo kind of energy. So part of your journey is around learning to feel comfortable in that energy, learning to push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, and to really activate your leadership and your power and your boldness through your soul purpose work. How does that feel?
That is actually the answer to why we've rescheduled, I think, 4 times.
Okay, there we go.
You mentioned that when we hopped on. You said like, okay, there is a, this happens for a reason. So actually, within the last few months, I've really felt called to revisit some of these old shyness patterns and step into, I'm a Leo rising, step into like that kind of energy for me that I've always like felt like, no, Leo and me, we don't have anything in common except for I love cats. Um, but now I feel like I'm really more able to trust myself and to trust like these center stage qualities, like you call them so lovingly, to like really explore that version of me that I've always shied away of. And so, yeah, there has been like really many signs within the last 2 months of like how to incorporate that in a business and how to step into a very different level of working with people and owning this energy of mine, which I haven't felt very familiar with, at least not in the like expression. From the internal, yes, but in the expression, not. So actually, like I had a talk with one of my mentors 3 days ago, and I think that's that's like why this is coming up right now, because that's the exact discussion we had around importance and showing up for private mentorship. Yeah, so amazing is that?
Wow. There's never any mistakes or coincidences,
The
right? I love
universe
that.
doesn't.
Yeah, so many people have said to me, because quite often Soul Plan numerology sessions get rescheduled, because I started to notice this and I was like feeling into it, and then it hit me, okay, it has to land in exactly the right time, exactly the right moment that someone's ready to receive it. And so many people have said to me, okay, if you would have told me this 3 months ago, it wouldn't have resonated in the way that it has right now. So powerful. I love that confirmation. And obviously I'm a Leo rising as well, so I love the fact that we've crossed paths with so many similarities, because that's one of the main reasons I named my business Leo Rising, because back then, 4 or 5 years ago, I rejected that part of me too. I was like, no, Pisces sun and moon, like I'm sensitive, I'm a little bit introvert. So I actually named my business Leo Rising to help me embody that part of me, and it truly has, yeah, the more I really step into my purpose, like now I'm like, of course I'm a Leo rising, like I love to take center stage, but it's been a journey. I was the same. I really rejected it when I first learned of my astrology, kind of 5-ish years ago. So
Really,
interesting.
and I love that you kind of had the courage to name the business for like the thing that you kind of had not felt intuitively into, or that you kind of like resisted embracing, because I think that's in itself is like a really big statement to the universe that like, I'm ready now to hold that energy. I'm ready to like really call it in, even though I'm like maybe a bit scared, or at least speaking for
Yeah.
me, like, there's kind of this physical resistance coming up, but then again, like saying, okay, here it is. I'm finally like really ready to filter that down. That's I think when like really quantum shifts can come in, because there's such a clear energy from you that there's a shift inside.
Definitely.
Oh,
I don't think I realized the power at the time that naming my business that was going to have, but it definitely was
it did
like a
make
guide.
sense.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, that's another interesting aspect to Soul Plan Numerology. Actually, you can do a reading on your business name as well. I've not actually done that myself. I don't know why, but I trust I'm not meant to receive that specifically yet. But that's another avenue of Soul Plan Numerology, that you can look at business names as
Yes,
well, which is
that's
just another
really
amazing part
cool.
of it.
That like for a client of yours, I imagine, who is like birthing a business, to like have that
Yeah,
knowledge, not
yeah,
only quote unquote for themselves, but also like for their business, to know like I've done that with human design with my business, and I found out it's a manifesting generator. I was like, okay, well that makes sense. It kind of helps me navigate it and not be consumed by it. So I guess it's like super helpful to have this energy, and especially the struggles of the business that you kind of birth. So it's interesting, but I also love that you said that you're trusting that you're not meant to hear that right now, and that's why you haven't been drawn to it. So, and if it works right now, then it's maybe not the right time to like really explain it from a different way. It's
it's
flowing.
interesting. I wonder, because I have thought about this recently as to whether I will ever change the name of my business. I did a few months ago, I kind of had this moment where I was like, okay, I've fully claimed this Leo energy. Now does stay my business name? And I almost was going to change it, and then my soul was like, no, not yet. So I feel like it will be at the point in which maybe I'm questioning whether to rebrand, change the name. Then I'll look at the chart and then look at the options of the charts. But
so I will see once you've changed your name. I will see that you've looked into your chart.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so amazing though. Obviously, when I was pregnant, I was looking at different name options for my son, putting the different energies through and seeing, okay, which energies do I connect to? And that really helped me to choose his name as well. Obviously, though he somehow channeled that to me, it was really helpful and beneficial in helping me to choose my son's name as well. So it's really limitless. There's so much you can do with this tool. And just, I love it.
I imagine. And I also, like, for me, that came up too, because we had a hard time like deciding or finding a name that we could for our son. And I was like, oh, okay, well, interesting to like look into that. I refused to like do an astrology chart for my son when he was born, because I said, like, I don't want to like imprint him with the expectation of what I have. Yeah. But later on I changed and said, like, okay, it depends on my how to call it, my intention, how I read the chart and how I look at, or how the human design chart is read by me. It doesn't have to like say like mold it to that because you're that, but it's more of like, okay, giving a potential or maybe even give an explanation for a certain struggle I might have at a certain point, which naturally comes. And for that, I think it's super helpful to like know where like your child has challenges and or could have challenges, and then there's a confirmation, like you said, like this big stamp from the universe that says, okay, here is a path to kind of resolve it or clear it up in a way.
Yeah, so helpful. I haven't looked at his chart again, I don't think, since I was pregnant. But again, it's like the trusting that it's there, as and when we need to dive in. So yeah,
we'll come at the right time, I think.
Exactly.
When you feel called to, then it's the time to look into. I feel like we're intuitively so connected. If we don't question it, it's always guiding us perfectly.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm just thinking of my partner as well. See, when I was doing the training, I wanted to use him as like an example, as a case study. And back then he was so closed off to it. I remember reading his chart and I could see exactly how it all lands, how it's all accurate. And he was, no, that's not me. And then more recently, he actually came to me and was like, oh, could we look at my Soul Plan Numerology chart again? So we did. And it was like things were now starting to land. So that's another example really of it has to find you rather than you seeking it, kind of thing, because you've got to be in that exact energy and place in your journey where you're ready to receive the guidance and the information. So that's been quite an interesting transition to witness in terms of how he's now embodying more of his strengths and his gifts, and he can see it. He can see it more than he could kind of 5, 6, 7 years ago.
It's really beautiful, I think. And I totally agree on what you said. I think the moment we find these modalities that help ourselves, kind of want to experience or have a loved one's experience them as well. But if they're not ready, they can't hear it, and they're closed off to something that would have helped them so dearly, but it's not possible. So it's necessary for like both of them, like the tool and the person, coming together and both saying yes. But like from the outside, it's often like, well, why don't you look at this? And it's interesting. It often comes through other sources, or it takes like a really long time until the people very close to us like kind of use the tools that we use. I've discovered that for myself too, and also like within like lots of women in my world, that it takes a long time and it needs to take energy until like it kind of like ripples out into like your closest circle. Often it's like the more outstretched ripples that come in first, and then it kind of goes back. It's really interesting, I think. Oh, but I love that he's taking it in more openly, and that he like gets to hear the message in there now. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, I think it'll be one of those things that we revisit every few years with him, right? Just to like unpeel another layer and another aspect.
Yeah, I think that is really or I imagine it would be like a really interesting thing to like revisit your Soul Plan Numerology after a few years, and I kind of see like, oh, okay, well, that's what I've maybe integrated a bit now, or okay, well, this struggle is still present or even has come up finally. So like looking on a map and see like where are you right now on your journey. I feel that really you can get a lot of information out by like looking at certain times in your life with a bit of like gap in between.
Yeah, definitely. I sometimes remind myself to look back at it, maybe if I'm in a particular period of challenge and I'm unsure what's going on, what the lesson is, that's when I get reminded to pull my chart back up again. And like you said, there'll be something that lands that never landed before, and I can see exactly how and why it's playing out at that moment in time. So it's like you don't just receive this message once, it's a lifelong tool that you can keep coming back to, and you'll really notice different parts of it depending on exactly where you're at in your journey. So yeah, I love that you brought that up.
It's interesting, isn't it, that we kind of like we can hear the same information, but depending on our frequency or our level of understanding, kind of hear this that we've heard never before with exactly the same message, maybe even on a recording of something. I've been trained like by Bob Proctor, with whom I started to like really re-listen and re-listen and re-listen to the same material to program the subconscious. And it feels different every time, and it hits different every time. So I think it's the same thing that you described there, that we are called to like revisit these tools that we have, especially in times when we feel more struggle, and see if there's maybe a totally different message coming out of it.
Yeah. Such a powerful question. Is there anything else you'd like to ask?
No, not of right now. I feel it will come later on, but right now it's just like puzzling its pieces together, and it feels really soothing to have a confirmation on some of the things that I've already like kind of noticed or had like seen on the horizon. And also like I really love to meditate on the numbers, because these number sequences are really feeling very aligned. So I wrap my head around that a bit, and then there will be questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
I thank you so much for sharing. This is very, very, very inspiring. Giving us a glimpse on how the Soul Plan Numerology works, because it really is feeling very different to every other numerology that I've so far explored. And it's really lovely like to have a bit of a tangible example to like really see like, okay, that's what I can expect from it. So thank you for doing that, and for your time and energy. And it was really the perfectly aligned timing. So I'm very glad that we committed to this as often as needed.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you for trusting me as well to speak about your energies live on the podcast. Yeah, I don't take it for granted. So thank you.
Okay, my dear. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day, and I'm sure we will connect very soon.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
Bye.